Hello, everybody. Welcome, masters, instructors, Taekwondo practitioners, and everyone joining us for this special event. My name is Ivan Rostalski, and I will be your moderator for these sessions. If you are joining just now, you might be wondering why we are holding this event. Today is April 11, 2025, a truly historic day. We are celebrating the 70th anniversary of Taekwondo. Whether you are watching from Asia, Europe, America, Africa, Oceania, we are deeply honored to have you with us for this 24 hours global celebration. Taekwondo is more than a martial art, it's a philosophy, a way of life, a powerful force that connects people across the cultures, language, and generations. Since General Choi, when he founded the Taekwondo, he was reached every corner of the world. It was empowered millions through the discipline, perseverance, and the indomitable spirit. 24 tools, 24 hours, 24 speakers, just like the 24 tools of Taekwondo. Each one represents an hour of the day. Together, they symbolize a life dedicated to growth, learning, and perseverance. Through the day, we will have engaging talks, living training sessions, and stories from legends of Taekwondo. Our speakers will be share the rich story of our art and promising the future ahead. We are here to learn, connect, and feel inspired. This event is for you. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this event is completely free and open to all. Without future delays, let's begin. These sessions will start with the partner 11, you sing. That was a truly inspiring performance of Mira Slovic from Finlandia. This form represents this hour in our 24-hour global celebration. Just each pattern holds deep meaning. Each session today gives us a perspective on past, present, and future of Taekwondo. Now, let me introduce, I am honored to introduce Master Janel Gauthier from Canada. Please, salute. Taekwondo, Master.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the technical problem. I thought that everything was okay. All right. So now we'll share my screen. Good. Grandmasters, masters, instructors, assistant instructors, and other Taekwondo practitioners, Taekwon. I wish to thank the organizers of TKD70 for having me. It's a huge honor for me to be invited to speak at such an important event. I'm delighted to see many of you attending this event. It's absolutely fantastic. And I think we owe a great deal to the organizers for putting this together, because I know it's a lot of work. Okay. The purpose of my presentation, it will be a little bit of a lecture, a little bit also reflecting on the history of moral training within Taekwondo training, looking at the past, essentially considering, acknowledging the past, acknowledging the present, and looking to the future. So the purpose, my primary purpose for this presentation, is to acknowledge and honor General Choi's legacy in moral training. Second, it is to reflect on General Choi's legacy in moral training and its implications for the teaching of Taekwondo around the world. So I'll be using the word Do a lot in my presentation. And I've been teaching, seminars, workshops, courses about the Do for many years. And I cannot take for granted that everyone has the same understanding of what the Do is about. So with your permission, I will say a few words about this to make sure that you and I, we have the same understanding of the term when we use it. The word Do comes from the Chinese word Dao. Literally speaking, it means the way, the path, and the road. And it is a concept that is very, very important in Chinese culture, and I would even say in Oriental culture. And General Choi, being Korean, was very much influenced by the Chinese culture and, among other things, by moral philosophers such as Confucius and Lao Tzu. The term can be used to refer to the path an individual should take in life. The word has many meanings, and the concept as such implies a way or a philosophy of life, an art of living, a way of thinking, a pathway to virtue and enlightenment. Now, how does General Choi define the word Do? He doesn't say much about this in the encyclopedia, but if you look carefully, read carefully, you'll find these quotes. But General Choi defined Do as way, the right way. And this is an exact quote from the encyclopedia. It's not any way, it is the right way. For General Choi, the right way refers to the way paved by the saints and wise people of the past. So for General Choi, learning Taekwondo involves learning to do what is morally right and morally good. For General Choi, physical and moral training are two indivisible parts of the study of Taekwondo. And this is what I will try to highlight in my presentation, and then I will raise a few questions for your consideration. Teaching the Do involves teaching about moral culture, moral values, and moral reasoning. It helps students to become better persons in the moral sense. When I conduct an IDC, it's not there. When I conduct an IDC, I often ask the following questions, true or false. And here are the questions. So you can answer for yourself. Don't use the chat. Just answer for yourself, true or false, to the following 4 questions. Do is the same as protocol. True or false? Ethics is the same as etiquette. True or false? Protocol refers to rules governing social behavior within a society. true or false. Do refers to a code of morality based on customs and traditions. I've been using this as an opening for years. And what I've seen over the years is that people tend to get the first three questions more and more correctly. At the beginning, over 50% of the people were giving the wrong answer for question 1, 2, and 3. And over 75% were giving the wrong answer for the fourth question. So, what I've seen over the years is now for the first three questions, about 25 to 30% of the people get it wrong. All the others get it right. It means we're making progress in terms of getting people to understand what the concept is, so that they understand that Do is not the same as protocol, ethics is not the same as etiquette, and now they know that protocol refers to rules governing social behavior within a society. However, there's still confusion about the fourth question. Of the last time, and this happened a week ago, when I asked this question to participants in an IDC, 70% of them said the Do refers to a code of morality based on customs and traditions. Either they did not read the whole question, or they don't understand what is the foundation of a code of morality. So let me give you very quickly some brief definitions of each term, so that they're not synonyms. They refer to different things. Do refers to the code of morality based on moral culture and values, not on social expectations or traditions. Ethics refers to the moral principles and values governing the behavior of people in life. Etiquette refers to the rules governing social behavior in society. And the etiquette will vary according to where you live in the world. For example, when I have a conversation with someone in some part of the world, I'm expected to maintain eye contact with the person I'm talking with. In other part of the world, this would be very rude. So this is why etiquette will vary tremendously around the world. Protocol refers to rules or procedures that members of an institution or organization, such as the ITF, must follow to demonstrate politeness in formal situations. Now, to try to make it easier to understand, think about what is driving Do, ethics, etiquette, and protocol. Do and etiquettes are closely connected because both are about moral behavior, and both are driven by moral principles and values. As to etiquette and protocol, both are about social behavior, and they are both driven by traditions, conventions, or customs. They have nothing to do with morality. Now, to reflect how important the teaching of the Do was to General Choi, let's look at the way the word Taekwondo has been spelled over the years. So initially, if we go back to 1955, when Taekwondo was created, it was spelled in three different words. Tai, first word, second word, Kwon, third word, Do. And it was meant to be that way because General Choi wanted to make sure that the name of his art would be pronounced correctly. Then in 1968, he thought that the goal had been reached, and therefore what he decided to do was to connect Taekwon, which refers to foot and fist, and that becomes the physical part, the technical part of Taekwondo. And and then they had the Do as the second word with a hyphen between the two. And the hyphen represents the two indivisible parts of studying Taekwondo. It means that when you study Taekwondo as envisioned by General Choi, you need to study and practice the techniques. You need to engage in technical physical training, but you also need to do the same with the Do, with moral training. You need to study the moral culture of Taekwondo. We do not spell our art in one word, as you can see, Taekwondo in one word, because General Choi did not believe that we had achieved a level where we correctly balanced these two facets, where physical and moral or spiritual training, as he calls it, are properly balanced to make one in Taekwondo practitioners worldwide. And the question could also arise, would that be desirable? Would we lose something in the process if we were just to put it all together in one word? I wholeheartedly agree with General Choi. Even so many years after he passed away, I would say, given what I have observed, I think it's much better to keep it the way General Choi has decided to spell it in two words in 1968, because we still have a long way to go to achieve the balance between the two facets of Taekwondo as General Choi wants us to achieve. Now, to further reflect how important the code of morality, how important moral training is to Taekwondo, let's look at this quote from General Choi's last publication, which was called the Moral Guidebook. The only way one can truly achieve the status as a man of Taekwondo, and we could say as a man or a woman of Taekwondo, is to go beyond the technical aspect and establish a lifestyle based on a solid code of morality. In fact, all the years of hard training will be nothing but a waste of time if not accompanied by modesty and propriety, which are the very essence of Oriental moral philosophy. Why did he write this in his last publication? For sure, he felt that moral development is something important. Let's look at this slide now. General Choi had spent his time successfully developing the technical aspect of Taekwondo, but he expressed deep regret at the end of his life that none of the instructors he had trained were qualified to teach the Do. And the quote reads as follows: "Although I have circled the globe 6 times each year in the quest to spread Taekwondo, I could barely afford enough time for technical seminars only. As a result, there are a plethora of instructors around the world who can completely conduct seminars on my behalf, but regretfully, none who can carry on the legacy of spiritual training." He published those lines in year 2000. It's not a long time ago. By establishing a Do and Ethics Committee and by developing and disseminating the Do, then we are fulfilling General Choi's last wish. So this is why I had many options when I was asking myself, what am I going to talk about, on this day to celebrate 70 years of Taekwondo, to honor General Choi. I decided after, a few days of thinking about all kinds of possibilities to talk about this and highlight some of his writings that speak for themselves. So The purpose of Taekwondo, as envisioned by General Choi, is to build, and this is a quote, is to build a better and more peaceful world. That is a society based on humanity, freedom, justice, morality, wisdom, and faith. To build a better and more peaceful society, Taekwondo places a heavy emphasis on the cultivation and learning of moral culture. That is the endeavor and process of becoming an exemplary person. It has something to do with virtue, becoming more virtuous over time as we grow older, as we have more knowledge, more experience. And to become such a person, one has to acquire a sense of morality that is respected by all. And those are not my words. Those are General Choi's words. If you look at the student's oath, which you find in the Encyclopedia of Taekwondo, look at the 4th and 5th line. General Choi summarized the ultimate goal of Taekwondo in the last two sentences of the student's oath. He says, I shall be a champion of freedom and justice. I shall build a more peaceful world. That is the ultimate goal of Taekwondo as envisioned by General Choi. Now, how do we get there? How do we become an exemplary person? That is a person with a sense of morality that is respected by all. Well, we're lucky because General Choi has given us the tenets of Taekwondo. The moral culture of Taekwondo is summarized in the tenets of Taekwondo, in the 5 tenets of Taekwondo. Only 5 words, but you can spend almost a lifetime to study the meaning and the implications of each tenet of Taekwondo, of each word. To walk without getting lost, we need a compass or a map. In terms of morality, we need a moral compass or a moral map. The tenets provide the moral guidance to walk the way, the right way, the way paved by saints and sages of the past to become a better person. The tenets and the student's oath are to be applied by each Taekwondo practitioner, regardless of our degree. Now, something that sometimes people wonder, well, when we recite the tenets of Taekwondo, we recite the oath, how universal are those values? Well, Grandmaster Tran Thieu Quan had many conversations with me about this because my specialty is psychology and ethics. And I conducted international projects in international ethics. And in my research, I found that there are actually moral values that are universal. And I can confirm that the tenets of Taekwondo, namely the first one, courtesy, which we often use the term respect to refer to it in the English language, Spanish language, French language, because the word respect includes better than the word courtesy. What is included in the word courtesy in the Korean culture, in the Oriental culture, in the Oriental moral philosophy? From these philosophies, we take universal values and which are not religion. And I insist on that. Those values are about to become a better person and build a better society. We're part of society and can also become role models. As Grandmaster Trantier Kwan wrote in his president's message, and it was a very, very famous message called The Do and the Importance of Teaching the Do in ITF Taekwondo, published in May 2004. This is over 20 years. The moral values promoted in Taekwondo are universal. They don't belong to Taekwondo. They don't belong to any religion. They're commonly shared by all human beings all around the world. I challenge you to find anyone around the world who doesn't care about courtesy, respect, being treated with care, about honesty, appreciate when you interact with them that you're honest, sincere, that you exercise self-control, that you don't yell at them, okay, that you treat them well, and so on. I challenge you to find anyone. I've tried. And after 50 years, I'm still looking for one. And I've been asking around many times. Values are considered universal when they are shared by all peoples, regardless of culture, religion, belief, and other differences. Universal moral values do not vary across societies. However, the way they are expressed can vary. For example, courtesy and respect are universal human values. In many cultures, you show respect, as I mentioned earlier, by looking someone in the eye when you talk to them. But in some cultures, such as Samoa, you lower your eyes when you talk with a senior. All cultures value respect and courtesy, but how you show respect can and will differ across cultures. At the center of the philosophy of Taekwondo, there is the moral obligation to help build a better world and more peaceful world in which humanity, freedom, justice, morality, wisdom, and faith will prevail. I want to emphasize here, again, this is the ultimate goal of Taekwondo as defined by General Choi. And to reach this goal, Taekwondo places a heavy emphasis on becoming an exemplary person. And to become such a person in Taekwondo, we need to practice the tenets of Taekwondo. This is what is expected from us. This is clear. This is a summary. This slide summarizes what I've just told you over the last few minutes. Now, I am totally confused. Let me explain. There's something I do not understand. The condensed version of the encyclopedia has 765 pages. A total of 17 pages are dedicated to the Do. That is 2.2% of the encyclopedia. And it is 2.3% if you omit the pages describing the table of contents. And you have listed on this slide what are the topics related to the Do in the encyclopedia. The tenets, you find them in pages 12 to 14, definitions, 15 to 16, a description of the moral culture and what it includes from pages 26 to 36, and a brief overview of the moral philosophy of Taekwondo on page 47. Very brief, one page. Now, how does one can reconciliate the emphasis on moral culture and moral training in Taekwondo with those facts? I'm totally confused. I do not understand. And furthermore, General Choi says in 2000, he writes, He said, I spent all my life going around the globe teaching technical seminars. He has not conducted those seminars during his life, and consequently, no one was trained to ensure his legacy in moral training when he died. If it was so important, how can we explain why there is so little in the encyclopedia? Because this would provide us with tremendous guidance in terms of how to go, what to teach in terms of moral culture, or help us understand the content of the moral culture, and provide us guidance in terms of what to tell our students. Now, there may be explanations. I had the opportunity, I'll give you one anecdote here. I had the opportunity, I was really lucky, I had the opportunity to meet with General Choi a few times because he lived in Toronto, I live in Quebec City. Grandmaster Taekwon lived in Quebec City, and Grandmaster Taekwon and I, we met often, almost 2-3 times a week to discuss all kinds of things related to Taekwondo and also the moral culture of Taekwondo. And one time, General Choi was visiting here in Quebec City, and Grandmaster Taekwon invited me to join him with General Choi. And I'm an academic, I'm a researcher, and I'm used to ask questions when I do not understand something. I asked General Choi, I know that there are very few pages about the moral culture in the Taekwondo Encyclopedia. I do not understand. Could you help me understand? And General Choi looked at me, a bit surprised by my question. It felt like 2 or 3 minutes, but probably it was only 30 seconds or so. I don't remember, but it felt very long. And General Choi said, come to my seminar tomorrow. I'll let you know. So the next day, I go to the seminar. I listen carefully to what General Choi is saying, and I could not find the answer. So I thought, and I was not going to go back to him and ask again because, I was afraid that it would be perceived as disrespect, because I had the feeling the night before when I asked a question that he had been challenged. This is at least how I interpreted his silence before he replied to me. In any case, some of you had the opportunity to get to know him much better than me. So here are a few things that we can think of to understand why there's so little information about the Do in the encyclopedia. First, we know because General Choi told us he was too busy conducting technical seminars around the world, and accordingly, he did not have time to write about it. Now, the odds are also that General Choi was more concerned about his technical legacy than his moral legacy, and this is why. We need to be aware, to be cognizant of the fact that moral culture, learning about moral culture, is part of the school curriculum in Korea. And it's not the same in the Western world or in the Occidental countries, so to speak. Western people do not know about moral culture, but Oriental people do because it's part of their curriculum at school. But neither Oriental people nor Western people knew about Taekwondo techniques. So, and furthermore, the demand for technical seminars conducted by General Choi was very strong. So in a way, it made sense for General Choi to focus on technical seminars because no one knew about the techniques, and he wanted to make sure that people would learn the techniques correctly. He knew that moral culture was important, and he knew that since the very beginning. And this is why he decided to spell Taekwondo in two words in 1968 with an hyphen between Taekwon and Do. So in a way, it made sense. However, later in life, he realized that he had made a mistake, and he expressed regrets for not having trained instructors around the world who are competent to carry on his legacy of spiritual and moral training. Now, we may wonder how he became to express it's because when he was in the year 2000, when he wrote those lines, when he expressed regrets, he was reflecting on his life. He was reflecting on everything he had seen and observed over the years when he was conducting technical seminars. He had been interacting with many instructors, masters, grandmasters. He had made tremendous observations. And he felt maybe, just maybe, he would be surrounded by people who would excel more in terms of courtesy, in terms of integrity, self-control, perseverance, and indomitable spirit, if he had taken the time to teach the tenets, to highlight them, and to show instructors how to teach the tenets of Taekwondo and how to integrate moral training in the teaching of Taekwondo. I don't have time to go into the details, but those who know the history of Taekwondo have an idea of what I'm referring to here. Okay. So, what does it mean for us here? Well, there are two challenges for us now, for those who have the responsibility to promote and ensure General Choi's legacy in moral training. First challenge is, in Taekwondo, a heavy emphasis is placed on moral culture because the perfection of moral behavior is the cornerstone of building a better and more peaceful society. General Choi has quoted various words of wisdom of ancient saints and philosophers for creating an ideal society in the hope that students of Taekwondo use them as a guide to cultivate their moral culture. And we find those quotes in the Encyclopedia of Taekwondo and his last publication, Moral Guidebook. To ensure his legacy in moral training, we need to study those quotes. To understand those quotes, we need to study the teaching of those ancient philosophers. A second challenge we have is the following. As a result of conducting technical seminars only when alive, General Choi sent out the wrong message. That moral culture is not as important as techniques, and that moral training was not as important as physical training. Implicitly, because he put his focus solely on the teaching of techniques, this is how it was perceived. General Choi was a model for all instructors around the world. If the model focuses on techniques alone, then those who are modeled will do the same. This means that there was a plethora of instructors around the world who had as model someone who did not appear to value moral training. It's untrue. He did value that a great deal, but this was not reflected in his behavior, in what he was teaching, because everything was dedicated to the teaching of techniques, and he ignored the importance of passing along the information needed to be able to integrate moral training in the teaching of Taekwondo. Consequently, these instructors were not keen on learning about moral culture and integrate teaching of Do in teaching of Taekwondo when General Choi passed away. This was going to make it extremely difficult and challenging for anyone to take on the task of fulfilling General Choi's earnest wish and get instructors to learn about the moral culture of Taekwondo and emphasize moral training in the teaching of Taekwondo. When General Choi passed away in June 2002, he left us with a huge task, the task of integrating the teaching of Do in the teaching of Taekwondo. In order to achieve that goal, the task of teaching instructors how to integrate the teaching of Do in the teaching of Taekwondo. Before becoming president of the ITF in 2003, Grandmaster Tran had been teaching Taekwondo in Quebec City for many years. Early on, he emphasized moral training in addition to technical training in the teaching of Taekwondo. I know because I was one of his Taekwondo students. I also started to conduct workshops and seminars about the Do with Grandmaster Kwon shortly after he became one of his Taekwondo. I became one of his Taekwondo students in 1988. And I went on to work closely with him on the development of the teaching of the Do within the ITF from the time he became president of the ITF until his passing away in January 2010. I remember how difficult it was for Grandmaster Kwon to have airtime to speak about the Do during an IIC when he was president of the ITF. His request was always met with some resistance, but he would always insist, and his request for airtime was always granted. Participants were fascinated and enjoyed his presentation. Then Grandmaster Kwon started to have more and more demands to speak about the Do. He was invited to speak about the Do at ITF workshops, seminars, and ITF conventions. He wanted me to teach with him. Of course, it was a great honor for me to teach with him, and it was a pleasure for me to support him and to do work with him. In 2005, he created the ITF Working Group for the development of the teaching of the Do, and he appointed me chair of the working group. This working group became, in 2019, an ITF standing committee called the Do Committee. Master Janel Tran became an active member of the ITF Working Group for the development of the teaching of the Do in 2006. And she has been working with me and at the time working also with her father ever since, very hard. The working group, just to give you an idea, at the time, around 2006, the working group developed a 3-level ITF Do training program, which was described in one of the issues of the ITF Taekwondo magazine. I remember a trip to Puerto Rico in 2005 when Master Gato invited me to speak about the Do, and another trip to Buenos Aires, during which Grandmaster Tritenberg and Master Marano asked me to conduct a Do seminar. Then we got invitations to conduct Do seminars and workshops at ITF conventions, another turning point. Interest in hearing about the Do was growing. A growing number of people were curious. Unfortunately, in January 2010, Grandmaster Kwon passed away. This was a tragedy. We had lost a leader, a mentor, when it comes to the teaching of Taekwondo as envisioned by General Choi. Then we had, as ITF president, Grandmaster Pablo Tritenberg. We continued to move onward. There were fewer activities than in the decade before, but they were highly important and meaningful activities, reflecting the development of the Do and the interest of promoting and teaching the Do within the ITF. A couple of milestones in terms of the development of the following. In September 2011, we conducted an invited workshop at the first ITF convention. It was a tremendous honor for the working group to be invited to conduct a workshop at the very first ITF convention in Benidorm. We conducted a 5-hour workshop in 3 different sessions over a 3-day period. It was unheard of. We never had so much airtime to promote and to speak, discuss the Do. Then we have another invitation in 2017 to conduct a Do seminar this time, again in Benidorm at the second ITF convention. And this time we had 4 blocks of 2 hours each. It was the longest workshop seminar ever. The board of directors attended the last session. I remember, I still see them sitting at a VIP table. And I felt that me and my time, we were under close scrutiny. At the end of the seminar, Grandmaster Trachtenberg got up and announced that the proposal for an ITF International Do course, or IDC for short, had been approved by the board, and that the board had accepted to sponsor financially the countries that would apply to host an IDC in their country. This was another major milestone development. However, at the time, the IDC was not mandatory. I remember a meeting in Benidorm in 2017 at the second ITF convention, a meeting where that I met with Grandmaster Trachtenberg and Grandmaster Marano to discuss the possibility of making the IDC mandatory. After all, the Do is an essential part of Taekwondo, and according to General Choi, is just as important as learning techniques. I remember Grandmaster Marano telling me that he waited 20 years to have the IIC before the IIC became mandatory. I replied to him, I understand. Thank you for letting me know. I had to do my time just like him. So, many years later, I'll be getting to that in a moment. So, the first IDC was held in Quebec City in 2017 to honor Grandmaster Tran Thieu Quan's legacy. The next one took place 2 years later, but this was under Grandmaster Weiler. Grandmaster Weiler became president of the ITF in 2019, and Grandmaster Weiler was, by education, an educator, a formal school teacher, someone very interested in sport, physical exercise. But he understood very well the importance of moral development. He was committed to the Do. And there were several developments under his presidency. Let me highlight a few ones. In 2019, the name of the committee changed from Do Committee to Do and Ethics Committee because the Discipline Committee was also doing ethics at the time. But there was an organization that the ITF wanted to join, and they did not want to have discipline and ethics under the same umbrella. So I offered Grandmaster Weiler to take on ethics because there are close connections between the content, what is included under the Do, and what is included under ethics. Then we had the second IDC in Amsterdam, followed a few days later by a third IDC in Finland. In 2021, we had our first online Do seminar, International Do seminar. In 2022, we had the first online international Do course. Now we offer 3 IDCs per year, and the number of IDCs per year is likely to grow according to demands for IDC each year. Now we conduct 2 IDCs in English and 1 in Spanish, and we try to avoid as much translation as possible so that we have more time to pass on material and information to participants. We will be completing the 15th IDC this coming Sunday.
Sorry, Master. We have only 6 minutes.
Yep, I'm getting there. Yep, I'm getting in there. Perhaps the most significant developments to have has been the changes in black belt promotion requirements. In August 2021, the ITF Board of Directors approved a Grandmaster's promotion policy, which required candidates for 9th degree to attend at least one IDC since grading to 8th degree black belt. And the requirement became effective in January 2022. In August 2022, the board approved an amendment to the ITF bylaws to make it mandatory for candidates for 7th and 8th degree black belt to attend at least one IDC during the preparation period. And that became effective on January 1st, 2023. And in January 2024, the board approved a similar amendment, which would apply to those who wish to be promoted to 4th, 5th, and 6th degree. And that became effective in April 2025. Now, a quick look to the future. We have come a long way, and there are challenges. The demands for IDC is growing, especially because it has become mandatory. We are confronted with a language issue because we have attending the IDCs people who have very limited understanding of English or Spanish. Maybe the AI, artificial intelligence, will help eventually with the translation. We're exploring other ways of addressing this issue, such as maybe training the trainers, developing a certification program with mandatory continuing education for those who would be responsible in each country to teach the Do. We are exploring ways of solving the problem. In closing, we have come a long way, and we still have a long way to go. We are approximately where the IIC was some 25 years ago. IIC has done a wonderful job at achieving international standardization of techniques. Not so easy to standardize Do teaching because there are cultural differences in the way moral principles and values are expressed in different cultures. Perhaps this is not desirable or achievable goal. For sure, we need to increase the level of knowledge and teaching skills among our instructors about the Do to ensure general choice legacy in moral training as envisioned by him. The world is changing, and if you look around, you watch the news, we need moral culture more than ever. Building a better and more peaceful world is becoming more challenging. If we gave it our best, and we have a lot to offer, then I think we can make a difference. Future will tell. I look forward to the 75th anniversary of Taekwondo. Until then, I wish you all the best. Thank you, merci, gracias, spasibo, obrigado, danke.
Thank you, Master. Thank you very much. As always, it's an honor and a pleasure to assist and showing with you. Anybody have any answer to Master? We are going to wait. Thank you, Master, for this is really interesting interview. Thank you.
But by the way, much of the information I've given you today, especially in the second part of my presentation, is unwritten, and I think before it gets too late, I would suggest make two proposals. One would be to write the history of the IIC committee and all the work it has done over such a long period of time, how it has evolved, how it has approached, how it has met the challenges. Because in preparing for this presentation, I found out if I were to disappear tomorrow and some of the history would be lost. It would be possible to track it down, but it would require a fair amount of work because I had to go through my own archives, and very few people have copies of my archives. In any case, this is just a proposal. I've been a member of international organizations, And archival of history is extremely, extremely important for an organization. So this is a proposal I made to the ITF to try to write the history of the ITF and all the major components of the ITF, of Taekwondo, the development of Taekwondo over the years before it gets lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Master. Well, the time is finished. If you don't have any problem, I want just to start with Master Fabian Izquierdo, because I know him and he talk a lot. Okay, thank you again, Master Janel, because it's so interesting and so nice to hear you. See you tomorrow on Sunday in the ITC.
Thank you.